Hello and happy Wednesday. Today on the Busy Bride podcast, I'm coming to you solo and we are talking all about wedding rentals. What they are, what they include, what type of couple should consider them, all of the things. So much to dive into in this episode, so let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to the Busy Bride podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella Marie, and I created this podcast to help you research vendors and learn valuable advice as you plan the most special and true to you wedding day of your dreams. Let's get started.
Okay, so rentals are just one of so many ways to customize and elevate the vibes of your wedding day. And before we get more into it, I say this all the time, but it seriously can be overstated. First and foremost, your wedding day is about you marrying the love of your life. And then after that, it's about celebrating that commitment and love with your favorite people. And thirdly, your wedding day is your day. So why the heck not style it like you've always dreamed of? So, soapbox went over. Now on to rentals. And if you're thinking, wait, I can rent things for my wedding? Like, I don't have to buy everything. Everything doesn't need to be included if I'm getting, married. The answer is a yes, you can rent things. And there are some cases where you absolutely should rent things for your wedding day. And there's a couple reasons why renting is so awesome. First thing is storage. When you buy something for your wedding day, be it a giant human-sized mirror for cocktail hour or a bunch of little vases to decorate reception tables, you need to store those things. Which may not be an issue for you, but if you're like me and you live in an apartment, it's not ideal to have to store a bunch of things and there's already not a ton of extra space. So storage is one thing to think of. If you lack that, then renting is a great option for you. Second thing is sustainability. When you rent something, you don't throw it away afterwards. It has lots of lives after your wedding day, which is great for so many reasons. So that's a really cool reason as well, just to the environmental factor. And then the third reason to rent is wedding cleanup. When you are done with when your wedding day's over and the reception ends and you clear out of your venue, where's all your stuff going? That's a question that doesn't get thought of if you haven't been to weddings or if if you're planning your first wedding, which a lot of people are. It doesn't get thought of. So a lot of venues like to clear out guests pretty quickly after the reception ends, just so they can start cleaning up and then their staff can go home. So if you added a bunch of personal touches to that with the wedding reception, they need somewhere to go and they need someone or usually people to get them there and to get them back. So the cleanup is a huge thing if you're having a bunch of personal touches being added to the day. So yeah, storage, sustainability, and cleanup. Because, when the wedding is over, you don't want to have to think about anything. You just want to go off and enjoy the night. So that's a huge thing to think about. Okay, now that we know the reasons to rent, how cool renting is, let's talk about the types of things you can rent, because there's a lot of them. And a lot of these things are not necessary for your wedding day per se. I mean, there's really nothing that's truly necessary on a wedding day except, getting legally married. But there are ways that you can elevate the vibes of your wedding day, make it feel a little bit more upscale, or you can just add personal touches. Like if you're somebody who loves pampas grass, the tan grass things, you can add that in without having to buy it and store it and throw it away. Things like that. There's just ways you can personalize, make your day more unique, and just elevate it. So, in no particular order, you can rent furniture like couches, love seats, chairs, tables, ottomans, you name it. And not just a single piece, but you can do multiple pieces, like if you wanted to get a bunch of really cool chairs for the ceremony, or you can have a whole little setup going for you. I've worked with couples in the past, and I actually am working with couples soon who are adding like a whole little section, like a rental section to their cocktail hour slash reception. Like with this super cute vintage love seat, a really cool armchair, and then like a coffee table with florals and candles and decorations where guests can like sit and hang out and do a little photo op and put their drink down and chat and have a whole moment. So they created a literal space to create memories, to have a moment, and to honestly get really cool pictures. That's a bonus. But furniture is really cool. And you can do this if you have a more like backyard style wedding where a lot of things are outdoors and there's not as many things like provided, not as much seating provided. Or you can do this at a venue that allows you to bring in rentals. There's some venues that are beautiful and gorgeous and have all these things, but maybe lack like an extra special, personal, unique element to it. And that's where you can bring in this furniture or like create a whole setup. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things that you can rent. And I don't know, they create a really cool opportunity for photos for you, photos for the guests, and just a place to have a moment and a maybe memorable chat with an old friend. So furniture is a cool thing to rent for your wedding day. Getting a little smaller in size, you can also rent place settings, like for your reception. So you think table numbers for your reception tables. You could do vintage plates and bowls, cups and glasses, napkins and napkin rings, even like cool utensils. You could do candles, candlesticks. The list goes on. Some things that I've seen as a photographer, I photographed a wedding this spring where the couple had unique vintage floral colorful plates and bowls for each guest. So this is a really cool thing to do because your guests will be up close and personal interacting with this aspect of your wedding day. So it's a way to really wow them and to make them feel special and to just enhance their experience at your wedding. And it looks so cool. This couple in particular, their vibes were like colorful wildflowers, happiness, joy, all of the things. And so having all these different like unique vintage plates with like bright florals and decorations on the plates was just a really cool touch to the wedding day that the guests were able to interact with. So that was cool. I've also seen like really cool looking modern gold utensils. It's kind of hard to describe on a podcast with just audio, but you know how like there's, the normal silverware where it's like this could be in your drawer at home. These gold utensils, I mean, if you have these gold utensils in your drawer at home, man, props to you because that's awesome. But they're a really cool touch to your wedding day because, again, the guests get to actually interact with that and feel cool at your wedding. I don't know. It's a cool thing to do. So that's another thing you can rent is things for your reception tables. And this goes like to the decor too. Like you could even probably rent like picture frames for your pictures because a lot of guests or a lot of couples will print out pictures from their relationship, like places they've been to together, or pictures from their engagement session, but you need frames to put them on the tables. And then if you have a billion picture frames, then what are you going to do with them after your wedding? So that's another cool thing to rent. Okay, staying in the vein of receptions, cake stands. You can rent cake stands. If you want to go all out with your wedding cake, why just have it sit there by itself when you can have it on a super cute stand to enhance the design of the cake, really accentuate the wow factor, and kind of draw more attention to it? The cake picture, like if you're cutting the cake, that's definitely going to be a photo in your gallery, and it's really cool, like moment, and it's also like a fun way to decorate your reception too. Um, and I've seen a lot of cakes come just like on a little platter, but like it's just the width of the cake. I don't know what it's called, but it's just kind of what the cake comes on. But you can put that on top of something else that looks really cool. So that's a small detail and just another way to kind of enhance the wedding. And if you really put a lot of thought and effort and time into designing or thinking about the design for your cake, then this is a really cool way to add to that and to kind of honor all the time you put into that. So Cake stands. Okay, another big thing, going backwards in time on your wedding day to the ceremony. If you're not getting married in a church, you could rent an arbor. And also, if you're new to the wedding space, an arbor is the thing that like decorates the place where your ceremony happens. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. So sometimes it's a floral arrangement or arrangements. It can be like a wooden teepee type thing with flowers on it. I know giant gold circles are pretty popular right now. Arbors are essentially like the backdrop to your ceremony photos, and it also marks where your officiant stands, where you two stand as you get married. It's kind of like what the guests see when they watch you get married. So that's an arbor. And a lot of times they're large if you do like a whole stand setup thing. So again, with the storage factor and the transportation factor, this is a great thing to rent because you may not have like a giant truck or van that is able to transport this. So that's a cool thing to rent, and there's so many different options for that. So that's cool. Another thing, throughout the whole wedding, not a standard wedding, I would say, there's typically lots of signs. So signage is another thing that you can rent. There's a sign welcoming guests to the ceremony. Sometimes there are signs that say like, what is it? Pick a seat, not a side. You're loved by both the groom and bride, or something like that. I forget it's something along those lines. There's also signs announcing the seating chart. There's a sign for the guest book, a sign for the cards and the gifts, a sign that says no photography during the ceremony, please. Stuff like that. Like there's just kind of generic signs that might not have your names on it. So even with personalizing some signs like welcome to so and so's wedding, you can still have generic signs that you can rent that have things like cards and gifts and please sign our guest book, stuff like that. So why not rent that and take something off your plate? Because signage can add, especially if you're DIYing a wedding, it can add things to your plate real quickly. Whew. Okay. I feel like I need to take a couple deep breaths. Those are just some of the things you can rent. I'm sure I'm missing so many things, but hopefully that gets your mind kind of rolling with all the things that you can rent, so that you don't have to store it, you don't have to clean it up, you don't have to throw things away. You can have things live other lives after your wedding day. So now you know that renting is awesome and that there are oodles of options for what you can rent. And I want to reiterate that as a wedding photographer, I've seen rentals at both like low key backyard weddings for intimate gatherings, all the way to like bigger, more standard weddings at venues. So some venues may have restrictions for what you're able to bring in, so definitely check with your specific venue. But if renting is an option for you, it's definitely something worth considering. And there are so many awesome companies that provide wedding rentals and custom wedding decor, which is a whole other topic that we can get into in another episode. But there's so many great companies, great individuals providing this. It's not like, it's like it's a thing. If you know what I mean. It's a thing. So I hope you learned something from this episode, and I hope you're feeling inspired and encouraged to personalize your wedding day with rentals, which I guess kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but it's true because rentals allow you to add like touches of things that are your style, which is like a touch of your personality. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, if you learned something, want to hear more like this, I would so appreciate it if you click the follow button if you haven't already. And as always, share this with your engaged or soon to be engaged friends to spread the goodness. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. Now go hug your person, and I will see you next Wednesday.